Welcome to Beat Diabetes, where we talk about ways and means to run that bully out of your life and out of your body. On today's edition, I'll be talking about how people feed the fires of diabetes and why it is that once you stop feeding that fire, diabetes will burn itself out and you will be free. All right, this particular note was actually an email. It's rather long, but it is so good, I just have to read it. In fact, it was so good, I asked this guy if he would like to be interviewed, and he said he wasn't really too interested in being on YouTube, so I don't push that. But it's a great story. He says, I've been watching Beat Diabetes for 6 months now. Here's my Beat Diabetes story. In July 2019, he said, I started intermittent fasting, but it was just to lose weight. At the time, I didn't know it was even called intermittent fasting. In other words, he just felt heavy. He was weighing 327 pounds, 62 years old, and he just thought, I'll just start skipping breakfast and live on 2 meals a day. So he says, I wasn't counting carbs or calories. I didn't... By skipping one meal, doing a 16-8, it did help me lose weight. So by February of 2020, and so it's been, quite a few months now, July 2019, he starts February 2020, goes back to the doctor to discuss his latest test results, and he had lost 50 pounds with his intermittent fasting, even though when he started out, he didn't even know that there was such a thing, but he was doing it anyway. He had enough sense to realize it's better to just eat 2 meals when you're overweight. So he was doing it. So the doctor says you've lost 50 pounds. Good. Your blood pressure is now normal. Wonderful. And, oh, by the way, you're diabetic. What was his initial reaction? What? I lost 50 pounds. How can that be? The doctor says, well, the last time you had an A1C, which was 18 months previously, year and a half, you were at 6.1. Today, the doctor tells him you are at 14 A1C, which is terrible. It's not just bad. You've got an elevated A1C, you've got a bad A1C, and then you've got terrible A1Cs. When you're at 14, my friend, you are at terrible A1Cs. He says, my fasting glucose on that particular day was 320 milligrams per deciliter, 320. Horrible. Doctor put me on metformin with a promise to add more medication if my glucose levels did not come down. He handed me a brand new mic. Well, he's got the terminology. He's been watching Beat Diabetes. We affectionately and rather humorously refer to our blood sugar meters as mic the meter, although we have some ladies that prefer a female meter, so they call theirs Melissa or whatever. I like alliteration, so I think you have to stick with an M name, but it doesn't have to be Mike. Anyway, gave him a blood sugar meter, the test strips, and so forth. He says, I went home dazed and confused. Well, I hear you. We've all been there. Most all of us that have seen Victory, we were at that place, dazed, confused, wanting answers. He said, I found Dr. Jason Fung on YouTube. That gave me hope. Diabetes was reversible. But listen to this. Everything I thought I knew about nutrition was wrong. Let me say that again. He says, everything I thought I knew about nutrition was wrong. You see, a lot of people will tell you, if you want good health, eat healthy. Eat a healthy diet. Well, I totally concur. The problem is there's a tremendous disparity between the different views of what a healthy diet consists of. For some people, if you simply pull the meat out of your diet, you've got a healthy diet. For some people, if you eat whole foods, you've got a healthy diet. For some people, if you get the carbs way down, you've got a healthy diet. There are all kinds of healthy, so-called healthy diets. Well, there are a lot of ways you can go about this, but one thing, in my opinion, is that you've just got to lower those carbs significantly. So, he says, all that I thought I knew about nutrition was wrong. I started to test my blood 5 times or more a day. Well, somebody's really getting into this when they're doing that. What's more, I know when I hear things like that, this person is headed for victory. They may not be there yet, but if they're testing that much and they're that serious about it, they're going to win. This is a winner. They may not be in the winner's circle yet, but they are a winner already because they've got the right attitude. So he's like, I'm testing myself 5 times or more a day. Found your channel. It had so much great information about the different foods and how they affect blood glucose. He says, by the way, I get similar results to you when I test the same foods. That's interesting. And I've heard that a number of times by a number of people. So they're saying, well, I get the same kind of results. You say, well, how will I know? Well, test yourself and see. Maybe you won't, maybe you will. But a lot of people do say that. So, hey, I'm one of you guys, in case you didn't realize that. Even though my A1C, doesn't reflect that I'm diabetic and my fasting. And some people get grumpy with me. They say, well, you're not a diabetic. Your A1C is low. How can you tell any diabetics anything? I'm one of you. I just control it. So this person says, you and your lovely wife are an inspiration, a great source of information. Thank you so much. I read 2 of Dr. Fung's books and 1 of yours. Now I'm watching my carbs, practicing keto, still skip breakfast. So he was doing intermittent fasting, but he was high carb. Now he's doing intermittent fasting and low carb. He says, my last A1C in September 2020 was 5.2%. 5.2. A1C of 14 to 5.2. He says it took me about 7 months to go from the high to the 5.2. My blood glucose levels, fasting and after eating, are now in the proper ranges for non-diabetics. I've lost over 90 pounds. I've also stopped taking the metformin in early June, so he's not taking any meds anymore. It's amazing how easy this is. Love it, love it, love it. Say it again. It's amazing how easy this is. What makes it easy? Well, the fact is that when you do it right and you're eating a lot of good, healthy fat and moderate protein and low carb, you just don't get so hungry. Some people, they're trying to fix things by eating high carb and just cut the calories, and they're hungry all the time. And that, my friend, is a prescription for failure. Hungry all the time. But that typically is not the story with people that do high fat, moderate protein, low carb. He says it really makes my cravings go away. He says my wife fully supports me. I have a few family members practicing keto as well. We get together, try new keto-friendly foods and recipes. He says, I was a person who used to eat whatever I wanted. I thought macaroni and cheese was a healthy meal. I never looked at nutrition labels. Because of the information people like you provide, I now know better. I look better. I feel better. My diagnosis of diabetes was, I feel, a life-saving event. I agree. I think in many cases, when we either got diagnosed or we got right up to the border of diabetes, in a way, it was a life-saving event because it caused us to start eating better. It's going to involve improvement every possible way. What a testimony. What a testimony. Love it, love it, love it. And the thing that I always want to emphasize is diabetes is a monster, is a killer, is bad news, is not something you want to underestimate. But there's a boxing term which says that a certain kind of a boxer has a glass jaw, which means that if you punch him hard in the jaw, he'll crumple. He can take blows to the belly. But if you get him in the jaw a few times and really tag him on the jaw, he will fall. He's got a glass jaw. In other words, he can't stand punches to the jaw. And diabetes has a glass jaw. That is, it has a weakness. We can overcome it by slashing the carbs, which are really the thing that feeds it. It's like if you're out in the woods and you want to build a fire, you want to feed the fire. You're building a campfire, let's say, and so you want to cook your beans, and you're going to add some wood, add some kindling, add some wood, add some wood. And the more you feed it the wood, the bigger the fire grows. But let's say you've cooked your beans, you've had your supper, you've cooked it over the fire, you're ready for the fire to go out. Well, stop feeding it. You don't just keep putting wood on the fire. There's a time where you say, I don't want the fire anymore. I want it to go out. Stop feeding it. And diabetics need to stop feeding their diabetes by eating all these junk carbs and really pretty much any carbs apart from the really low-carb vegetables like broccoli, like cauliflower, like cucumbers, like green peppers, and all those good vegetables that make such wonderful salads. Feel free to throw in some nuts or throw in some sunflower seeds and a little grated cheese, and, there's a lot of stuff. Put in a few strawberries, jazz it up a little bit, but those salads can be a powerful weapon in fighting diabetes. And it's not like you got to live on salad, obviously. You can have a big steak, or there's a lot of foods you can eat. But you don't want to keep feeding it by just constantly stuffing carbs into your mouth all day long. Snacks and meals and snacks and meals and potatoes and bagels and white bread sandwiches and brown bread sandwiches and white rice and brown rice and candy bars and sodas and fruit juice. And you're just feeding the fire, feeding the fire, feeding the fire, feeding the fire. And then you wonder why you can't get victory over diabetes. And there's some people so silly, they'll tell you, well, just cut the fat. My friend, it's not the fat that's doing all this damage to you. It is the carbs. It's not the fat. And I know there are people who will tell you to the contrary, but one thing we know, the minute you cut the carbs, you start putting out the fire. You can cut the fat all day long and the fire still burns. But when you cut those carbs radically, significantly, the fire starts to go out. It goes out faster for some than others. We don't understand that completely, but it starts to go out. So my friend, stop feeding your fire and cut those carbs and put the fire out, and you'll feel like all these testimonies that I constantly share with you, you'll feel that same euphoria. There's nothing like it. It is so euphoric. It's like a kid that's getting beat up by a bully every day, coming home from school. The bully gets him and beats him senseless every day. And then finally somebody teaches him how to fight. And the next time he's attacked by the bully, he starts fighting. And before long, he beats the bully. And the bully's got a black eye. And the bully's crying and running home to mama, screaming and crying like a little girl. And how do you feel? You feel wonderful, right? You beat the bully. Well, my friend, you can beat the bully of diabetes. It's not even that hard. You just need some information and you need some motivation, and your blood sugar meter will do a lot of that. Watching channels like this one, and there are many others, and reading some good books, that'll help as well. So feed the fires of knowledge. Don't feed the fire of carbs and diabetes. All right, well, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this. If so, give it a thumbs up, and be sure and subscribe if you haven't yet done that, and click that bell icon so that you'll be notified when we post new videos. God bless. See you again soon.